In every street, on every corner, police and soldiers attempting to maintain the peace in unprecedented circumstances.
It's massive. It's going to be the biggest outpouring of people onto the streets of London the UK has ever seen.
Former Met Police Commander Bob Broadhurst headed police operations for William and Catherine's wedding and the 2012 Olympics, and says this funeral is the biggest security challenge of its kind in UK history.
You've always got to, sadly, start with terrorism. And we're not talking here about coordinated terrorism like ISIS or groups like that anymore. We're talking about lone wolves, individuals, just someone who's going to run amok in a crowd.
On the day of the funeral, snipers will be stationed on rooftops and bomb disposal teams will be on standby.
The Metropolitan Police is also hosting a contingent of police from every single police service. They've come from Manchester, Scotland, Devon and Cornwall, Essex. Every force in the UK has got police here at the moment.
750,000 people are expected to travel into London ahead of the funeral. With more than 10,000 police on duty, 2,000 guests will attend the service at Westminster Abbey, including kings, queens, presidents and prime ministers.
Tomorrow, I will be helping VIPs board buses at a location in London. There are so many VIPs, they can't each arrive in their own car with their own entourage because it would take too long to get them all into the Abbey.
There's an obvious threat there. There's the threat of crime. Large crowds bring criminals, sadly. There's the threat of what we call fixated individuals, mentally ill people who think they should be married to the king or the princess.
But even large groups congregating to mourn can prove dangerous.
If we have a sudden thunderstorm, everybody goes for the same exit. Large numbers of people are potentially dangerous if they all start to move suddenly at the same time.
But despite the high visibility of law enforcement, most of the work to maintain safety will take place behind the scenes.
There are hundreds of plans in place, and I'm hugely confident that nothing is going to interrupt the activity tomorrow.
Well, Simon Morgan has served as personal protection officer for the royals, including the late Queen and the now King Charles, and he joins me now. Simon, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Given all of the possible dangers here, how well prepared is London for this massive event?
I think London is very well prepared for it. Certainly walking round, you see the vast number of police officers and the mitigation that is in place to allow this event to go ahead safely. And the Metropolitan Police are used to dealing with large-scale events. They're used to dignitaries visiting London, but not all on the same day.
We just heard then about this fixated persons unit. Can you explain a little bit more about how you work out who is a fixated person and what you then do with them, particularly in a moment like this when emotions are really heightened?
Yeah, very much so. And so the Fixated Threat Assessment Centre, FTAC, is part of the Metropolitan Police Service. It's a combined department with law enforcement and medical practitioners, because previously people may come to attention of law enforcement but not the medical side, and vice versa. And sometimes at the end of an event, sometimes in an inquest, people would actually say, well, we knew about this gentleman. Well, why didn't you tell us? So it was brought in many years ago, and it's very groundbreaking. And they look to work as a group together, looking at these people who may have started as a letter writer, may have then become an attender, and now the tone of their language has changed, so they need to go and speak to them and see what they're doing. You're looking at people who think they are the king, or indeed think they may be married to the king. Therefore, they have a rightful part to be part of the day on Monday. And certainly the things that have happened over the last 10 days, that would have seen a shift in some people's minds to make them act some of the things that they'd previously talked about doing.
So tomorrow we've got 2,000 people inside Westminster Abbey, a huge number of foreign dignitaries, royalty from all around the world. When you've got that many important people, VIPs, that much power in one place at one time, does that make it easier to handle security, or does that make the whole situation so much harder to control?
It's probably a bit of both. Yes, it is easier because you've done it before. Like I said, we have 2 state visits a year here in London, so you're used to dealing with dignitaries coming into the UK. However, putting them all in the same place at the same time does bring its challenges, and some of those can be logistical. How do you move these people from currently protected addresses to now this protected area? So that becomes a logistics issue as well, but nothing that the Metropolitan Police Service isn't used to dealing with, and support from all other forces throughout the UK at the moment as well.
Having worked as the Queen's personal protection officer, I'm imagining that there will be many elements of tomorrow that feel extremely personal to you, given how well and how up close you were to the Queen. How do you think you'll cope with seeing tomorrow's funeral?
I mean, it's going to be the final part, you know, and I think for me, it started when that announcement from the palace to say the Queen was unwell. That was extremely unusual, and that to me was the prelude of where we were going, you know, all the way up to that announcement at 6:30.
How was that moment for you?
It's a strange scenario. You know it's going to happen, but for some reason you didn't think it would happen to the Queen. And I've talked to lots of my former colleagues and people that I work with now, and they all say the same thing. Yes, knew it was going to happen, but didn't think it would. And that's really a strange thing for people to say, especially police officers who deal a lot in tragedy. Then, that's just actually say that was somewhat difficult. But also when the Queen came back to London earlier on in the week, and the members of the Special Escort Group who had escorted her all the way from Northolt, who then stopped, bowed their heads and showed a tremendous amount of professionalism and respect. That brought a lump to my throat. And I think tomorrow when you see the gun carriage come out of Westminster Hall, that's going to be a final part of that journey. And yes, that's when it's going to hit home, but indeed for the next couple of days it won't be, because you're part and parcel of it, and it'll be the same for lots of police officers involved in this.
Simon Morgan, really appreciate you coming and chatting to us today.
My pleasure.
And all the very best for tomorrow.
Thank you.